Imagine a hero who can shrink to the size of an ant. Not just any ant, but the tiniest ant you can imagine. This hero isn't just small, he's powerful. He can communicate with ants, control their movements, and even use their strength to his advantage. This is the world of Ant-Man, a superhero unlike any other. Ant-Man's powers come from a suit, a technological marvel that allows the wearer to shrink down to incredible sizes while increasing their strength. The Ant-Man suit is a marvel of engineering and scientific innovation. It represents a significant leap forward in our understanding of physics and the manipulation of matter. But this power comes with a price. The suit is dangerous, and in the wrong hands, it could be catastrophic. That's where our story begins. The world of Ant-Man is filled with wonder, danger, and the constant threat of enemies who would exploit this technology for their own gain. As we delve deeper into this world, we'll encounter characters driven by ambition, revenge, and the desire to protect the innocent. Get ready to explore a universe where size is relative and the smallest hero can make the biggest difference. Dr. Hank Pym, a brilliant scientist, stands at the heart of Ant-Man's story. He is the inventor of the incredible shrinking technology that gives Ant-Man his powers. Pym's genius is undeniable, but so is his haunted past. Driven by the loss of his wife, Janet Van Dyne, who disappeared into the mysterious quantum realm, Pym is a man burdened by secrets and regrets. Pym's invention is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it holds the potential to change the world for the better, to revolutionize fields like medicine and energy. On the other hand, it could be used for destruction on an unimaginable scale. This internal conflict, the struggle between the potential for good and the fear of catastrophic consequences, weighs heavily on Pym. His dedication to protecting his technology leads him down a lonely path. He must constantly be vigilant, always watching for those who would steal his invention and use it for evil. This constant vigilance takes its toll, shaping Pym into a guarded and often distrustful man. The ability to shrink to the size of an ant opens up a world of possibilities, both thrilling and terrifying. Imagine exploring the world from a completely different perspective, navigating the micro-world with the agility and strength of an insect. This is the allure of Ant-Man's powers, the ability to experience reality in a way never before imagined. But with this power comes a unique set of challenges. Everyday objects become insurmountable obstacles. A simple puddle transforms into a treacherous lake. The line between friend and foe becomes blurred as even the smallest creatures pose a potential threat. Ant-Man's world is a constant test of skill, ingenuity, and courage. This juxtaposition of the ordinary and the extraordinary, the mundane and the fantastical, is at the heart of Ant-Man's appeal. It's a story that reminds us that even in a world of incredible technology and superhuman abilities, it's often the smallest among us who can make the biggest difference. The year is 1989. The Cold War is nearing its end, but tensions between superpowers remain high. Deep within the clandestine corridors of S.H.I.E.L.D., a top-secret project is underway. Its name, Project Goliath. At the helm of this project is Hank Pym, a brilliant scientist on the verge of a groundbreaking discovery, a suit capable of shrinking a human being to the size of an ant, while granting them superhuman strength. Pym believes his invention holds the potential to revolutionize warfare, to create a new breed of soldier capable of infiltrating enemy lines undetected. But as the project progresses, Pym becomes increasingly uneasy. He sees the potential for his invention to be misused, to fall into the wrong hands and unleash unimaginable chaos. His concerns are dismissed by his superiors, their ambition clouding their judgment. Driven by his conscience and a growing fear of the technology he created, Pym makes a drastic decision. He resigns from S.H.I.E.L.D., effectively shutting down Project Goliath before it can be weaponized. His actions do not go unnoticed. S.H.I.E.L.D. feels betrayed, their investment in Pym's genius turning to resentment. Pym vows to protect his invention to ensure that it never falls into the wrong hands. He knows that the world is not ready for the power of Ant-Man. He will guard this secret, carrying the burden of his knowledge and the consequences of his actions for years to come. Years pass, and Hank Pym retreats from the world, haunted by the past and the weight of his secret. He pours his energy into his company, Pym Technologies, hoping to leave behind a legacy of scientific innovation that will benefit humanity. But his past casts a long shadow, and his relationship with his daughter, Hope Van Dyne, becomes strained. Hope, a brilliant scientist in her own right, yearns to follow in her father's footsteps. She sees the potential of his work, the good that it can do for the world. But Pym, still scarred by the loss of his wife and consumed by guilt over his past actions, keeps Hope at arm's length. He refuses to share his secrets with her, convinced that he is protecting her from a dangerous world. This lack of trust creates a rift between them, a chasm of misunderstanding and resentment that widens with each passing year. Hope feels betrayed by her father's secrecy, her own ambitions stifled by his fear. She begins to question his motives, wondering if he is truly protecting her or simply guarding his own legacy. This tension, the clash between a father's desire to protect and a daughter's yearning to understand, sets the stage for a conflict that will have far-reaching consequences. The future of PIM Technologies and the fate of Ant-Man's legacy hang in the balance. As Hank Pym isolates himself from the world, a new threat emerges from the shadows: Darren Cross, Pym's former protege. Cross, a brilliant but ruthless scientist, is obsessed with Pym's work, driven by a desire to unlock the secrets of the Ant-Man suit. He sees the potential for profit and power, envisioning a world where shrinking technology can be weaponized and sold to the highest bidder. Cross's ambition knows no bounds. He manipulates his way into a position of power within PIM Technologies, using his charm and intellect to outmaneuver his colleagues and gain control of the company. He sees PIM's technology as his birthright, convinced that he is the only one worthy of wielding its power. Pym, sensing the danger posed by his former protege, tries to warn the world about Cross's true intentions. But his warnings fall on deaf ears, dismissed as the ramblings of a bitter old man. Cross has successfully painted himself as a visionary, a leader who will usher in a new era of technological advancement. With each passing day, Cross edges closer to replicating Pym's shrinking technology. He will stop at nothing to achieve his goals, even if it means destroying everything that Pym holds dear. The stage is set for a confrontation, a battle of intellects and ideologies that will determine the fate of Ant-Man's legacy and the future of the world. In the bustling city of San Francisco, a small-time thief named Scott Lang struggles to rebuild his life after serving a prison sentence. Haunted by his past mistakes and desperate to provide for his young daughter, Cassie, Scott finds himself at a crossroads. He yearns for redemption, for a chance to be the father Cassie deserves, but the weight of his criminal record makes finding a legitimate job nearly impossible. Scott's old cellmate, Luis, offers him a way out, a chance to use his unique skills for one last heist. Luis, a man of unwavering loyalty and a knack for gathering information, believes he has found the perfect score, a seemingly impenetrable safe hidden within an old mansion. Scott, torn between his desire for a fresh start and the allure of easy money, reluctantly agrees to join Luis's crew. As they meticulously plan the heist, Scott grapples with the consequences of his actions. He knows that one wrong move could land him back behind bars, jeopardizing his chance at redemption and shattering Cassie's dreams. But desperation, coupled with the belief that this is his last shot at a normal life, pushes him forward. Little does Scott know that this heist will be anything but ordinary. It will lead him down a path he could never have imagined, a path filled with shrinking technology, talking ants, and a destiny he never thought possible. The night of the heist arrives and Scott, disguised in a hooded sweatshirt and gloves, expertly disables the mansion's security system. He navigates the darkened hallways, his heart pounding in his chest, until he reaches his target, a massive steel vault hidden behind a bookshelf. Using his skills as a safecracker, Scott cracks the vault, his anticipation building with each click of the tumblers. As the heavy door swings open, a wave of disappointment washes over him. The vault isn't filled with gold bars or priceless jewels, but with a strange, seemingly outdated motorcycle suit and a helmet. Confused but determined not to leave empty-handed, Scott grabs the suit and stuffs it into his duffel bag. He makes his escape, unaware that he has stumbled upon something far more valuable than he could ever imagine. Back at his apartment, curiosity gets the better of Scott. He examines the suit more closely, noticing strange dials and buttons he's never seen before. Intrigued, he decides to try it on. As Scott fastens the last buckle on the suit, a surge of energy courses through his body. He feels a tingling sensation, a strange compression, as if the air around him is growing denser. He looks down at his hands, watching in disbelief as they shrink before his eyes. Panic sets in as his entire body begins to shrink, the room around him growing larger with each passing second. Scott races to remove the suit, but it's too late. He's shrunk to the size of an insect, trapped in a world that suddenly seems vast and terrifying. He stumbles through a jungle of carpet fibers, his heart racing as he desperately searches for a way to reverse the shrinking process. Just when he thinks all hope is lost, he discovers a small button on his wrist. He presses it, and to his relief he begins to grow back to his normal size. Shaking and disoriented, he realizes that the suit he stole is no ordinary costume. It's a gateway to a world beyond his wildest imagination. Determined to return the suit and forget this ever happened, Scott heads back to the mansion. However, his attempt to discreetly return the stolen goods is foiled when he is apprehended by the police, who were alerted to his presence by a silent alarm. As he sits in the interrogation room, a strange man arrives, claiming to be Scott's lawyer. This man is none other than Hank Pym, and he has a proposition for Scott, one that will change his life forever. The San Francisco Police Department holding cell was hardly a place for life-altering propositions, but then again, Scott Lang wasn't accustomed to encountering world-renowned scientists in his daily life. "Scott Lang," the older man began, his voice a blend of weariness and urgency, "I know why you were at that house. You have something that belongs to me." Scott, wary but intrigued, eyed the man who introduced himself as Hank Pym. He'd heard whispers of Pym, a name whispered in hushed tones in the science community, a name synonymous with innovation and shrouded in mystery. Pym spoke of a powerful technology, a suit capable of shrinking a person to the size of an ant, a suit that Scott, unknowingly, had in his possession. Pym explained that this suit, the Ant-Man suit, was in danger, that a former protege of his, a man named Darren Cross, sought to replicate and weaponize its technology. Scott listened, a mixture of skepticism and fascination swirling within him. This had to be a joke, an elaborate hallucination brought on by the stress of his situation. Yet the intensity in Pym's eyes, the desperate plea in his voice, held a ring of truth. Pym laid out his proposition. He needed Scott's help to infiltrate Pym Technologies, to steal back the technology before it fell into the wrong hands. Scott, a thief with a conscience battling his own inner demons, was an unlikely hero. But Pym saw something in him, a spark of redemption, a yearning to set things right. He offered Scott a chance to be more than a thief, a chance to become the Ant-Man, a hero who could save the world from a threat it didn't even know existed. The weight of the situation pressed down on Scott. He could walk away, serve his time, and try to rebuild his life. Or he could take a leap of faith, embrace the absurd, and become something extraordinary. The decision, as daunting as it seemed, was surprisingly clear. Scott Lang, the ex-con, the father desperate for redemption, would become Ant-Man. Transforming into a superhero, Scott quickly learned, was no easy feat. Pym, along with his skeptical but brilliant daughter Hope, subjected Scott to a rigorous training regimen. Days turned into nights as Scott grappled with the intricacies of the Ant-Man suit, the physics-defying properties of Pym particles, and the surprising strength that came with shrinking to the size of an ant. Hope, a skilled martial artist, pushed Scott to his physical limits, her movements a blur of precision and power. Scott, despite his initial clumsiness, proved to be a fast learner, adapting his fighting style to his newfound abilities. He learned to control his size and density, shrinking and growing at will, using his environment to his advantage. The once mundane world transformed into an obstacle course of giant furniture, towering blades of grass, and treacherous puddles. But the most fascinating aspect of his training involved mastering the art of communication and control over ants. Pym, a pioneer in the field of myrmecology, had developed a device that allowed him to communicate with and direct the actions of various ant species. Scott, initially apprehensive, found himself forming an unlikely bond with his insect allies. He learned to appreciate their strength, their unwavering loyalty, and their surprising intelligence. The ants became an extension of his own abilities, a swarming army at his disposal. He could command them to form bridges, carry objects many times their size, and even attack his enemies with a ferocity that belied their diminutive stature. As Scott honed his skills, he began to understand the true potential of the Ant-Man suit. He wasn't just a thief in a fancy costume, he was a force to be reckoned with, a miniature marvel capable of extraordinary feats. As Scott's training progressed, a complex dynamic unfolded between Hank, Hope, and their new recruit. Hope, still harboring resentment towards her father for his secrecy and the tragic loss of her mother, struggled to accept Scott as a worthy successor to the Ant-Man mantle. She saw him as a reckless thief, a liability in their fight against Cross. Hank, burdened by guilt and haunted by the past, recognized the same potential for good in Scott that he saw in himself years ago. He understood the struggle for redemption, the desire to make amends for past mistakes. The tension between father and daughter was palpable, their shared grief over Janet's disappearance a constant undercurrent in their interactions. Scott, caught in the middle of their strained relationship, tried to navigate their emotional minefield with a mix of humor and empathy. He understood loss, having experienced it firsthand with the breakdown of his own family. Despite their differences, a grudging respect began to form between Scott and Hope. She recognized his dedication, his willingness to push himself beyond his limits to master the suit. He, in turn, appreciated her unwavering focus, her tactical mind, and her deep understanding of her father's technology. As they worked together, planning the heist that would take down Cross and reclaim the stolen technology, a sense of camaraderie began to emerge. They were an unlikely team, a brilliant but jaded scientist, his estranged and capable daughter, and a small-time thief turned unlikely hero. But united by a common goal, they found strength in their shared purpose. They were fighting for something bigger than themselves, for the legacy of Ant-Man, for the chance to right past wrongs, and for the hope of a future free from the threat of weaponized, shrinking technology. The day of the heist arrived, a high-stakes operation set against the backdrop of a lavish PIM Technologies gala. Scott, clad in the Ant-Man suit, shrunk down to the size of an ant, ready to infiltrate the heavily guarded facility. Hope, coordinating the mission from a remote location, guided Scott through the labyrinthine corridors, his every move tracked on her monitors. As Scott navigated the building, he encountered a series of obstacles that tested his abilities to the limit. He shrank down to microscopic size to bypass laser grids, rode on the back of a flying ant to reach higher levels, and even hitched a ride on an unsuspecting employee's briefcase. Meanwhile, Hank, disguised as a guest at the gala, kept a watchful eye on Darren Cross, monitoring his movements and anticipating his next move. The tension in the air was thick as Scott finally reached his target, the lab where Cross was showcasing his own version of the shrinking suit, the Yellow Jacket. As Cross proudly unveiled his creation to a room full of potential buyers, Scott prepared to make his move. However, things took a turn for the worse when Cross, suspicious of Hank's presence, unmasked him, exposing his true intentions. A struggle ensued, the gala thrown into chaos as Hank fought to protect his technology. Scott, witnessing the confrontation unfold, knew he had to act fast. He had to get to the Yellow Jacket, but more importantly, he had to protect Hank and ensure that his legacy wouldn't be tarnished by Cross's greed and ambition. The stage was set for a showdown, a battle that would determine the fate of PIM Technologies, the future of shrinking technology, and the very meaning of heroism. The air crackled with energy as Scott, miniaturized in his Ant-Man suit, launched himself into the fray. He moved with a speed and agility that belied his size, dodging laser blasts from Cross's security forces and unleashing a fury of punches and kicks that sent heavily armed guards sprawling. Cross, taken aback by this sudden intrusion, watched in disbelief as his carefully orchestrated presentation descended into chaos. The lab, once a sterile showcase of cutting-edge technology, became a battleground. Glass shattered, alarms blared, and the terrified screams of fleeing guests echoed through the once pristine halls. Scott, using his shrinking abilities to his advantage, darted between the legs of his adversaries, transforming everyday objects into makeshift weapons. A flick of his wrist sent a wave of ants surging forward, their tiny mandibles tearing at the exposed skin of their targets. Cross, realizing that this was no ordinary security breach, donned his own suit, the Yellow Jacket. With a deafening roar, the Yellow Jacket's suit activated, its exoskeleton shimmering with a menacing yellow glow. Cross, his voice distorted by the suit's vocoder, let out a triumphant laugh. "You picked a bad time to interrupt, Pym," he boomed, his voice echoing through the chaotic lab. Hank, nursing a wound from the initial scuffle, knew that Scott was outmatched. The Yellow Jacket's suit was a weapon, a perversion of his own creation, designed for combat and destruction. He watched with a mixture of pride and fear as Scott, undeterred by the odds stacked against him, continued his assault, his small size concealing a surprising tenacity. The battle raged on, a blur of shrinking and growing figures, laser blasts, and swarming ants. Scott, realizing that brute force wouldn't be enough to defeat Cross, relied on his wits and agility, exploiting the environment to his advantage. He shrunk down to the size of a pinhead, slipping through the Yellow Jacket's defenses and delivering a series of stinging blows to its exposed circuitry. Cross, enraged by Scott's elusiveness, unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, tearing through the lab with reckless abandon. Display cases exploded, computers sparked and died, and the floor itself buckled under the force of the Yellow Jacket's power. Scott, barely dodging a blast that melted a nearby metal table, knew he couldn't keep this up for long. He needed a new plan, a way to disable the Yellow Jacket suit without harming Cross. He remembered his training, Hope's voice echoing in his ear. "Every suit has a weakness, Scott. You just have to find it." He scanned the Yellow Jacket, his helmet's display magnifying the suit's intricate design. There, on the back of the neck, he spotted it, a small exposed panel, likely housing the suit's power regulator. But how to reach it? The Yellow Jacket was heavily armored, its every move designed to crush and destroy. Scott, his mind racing, formulated a risky plan. He would have to shrink down to his smallest size, a size that would allow him to slip through the molecular gaps in the Yellow Jacket's armor. It was a dangerous gamble, one that could trap him in the subatomic realm, but it was a risk he had to take. While Scott battled Cross inside the lab, Hope watched the unfolding chaos with growing concern. She saw the destructive power of the Yellow Jacket, the ruthless disregard Cross had for human life. Her father's warnings echoed in her ears, memories of her mother's disappearance flooding her mind. She couldn't stand by any longer. She had to help. "Father, I can do this," she pleaded, her voice tight with a mixture of fear and determination. "Let me suit up. Let me fight alongside Scott." Hank, torn between his desire to protect his daughter and the desperate need to stop Cross, hesitated. He knew the risks, the dangers of facing a man like Cross, but he also recognized the fire in his daughter's eyes, the same unwavering spirit that Janet had possessed. He relented, leading Hope to a hidden compartment where a sleek, wasp-like suit awaited. It was a prototype, not as powerful as the Ant-Man suit, but it was agile, equipped with a pair of energy blasters and a pair of retractable wings. "Be careful, Hope," Hank cautioned, his voice heavy with emotion. "Don't let anger cloud your judgment. Remember who you're fighting for." Hope, her face a mask of determination, nodded, slipping into the suit. She felt a surge of power course through her veins, a mix of her father's technology and her own unyielding spirit. She took to the skies, a blur of black and gold, her sights set on the chaos below. She would avenge her mother, protect her father, and ensure that Cross would never again threaten their family. Ignoring the warnings flashing across his HUD, Scott initiated the shrinking sequence. His vision blurred, his body compressing, the world around him dissolving into a kaleidoscope of light and sound. He was shrinking beyond the limits of what was considered safe, venturing into the unknown depths of the quantum realm. He breached the Yellow Jacket's armor, the world around him transforming into a surreal landscape of swirling atoms and pulsating energy fields. The air crackled with unknown forces, the very fabric of reality seeming to warp and twist around him. He pressed on, his tiny form navigating this subatomic world, his target, the power regulator, looming large in his sights. He reached the regulator, a mass of wires and circuits pulsating with energy. He drew his miniature EMP device, aiming it at the exposed core. But as he fired, a wave of energy surged through him, the quantum realm reacting to his presence. He was caught in a riptide of subatomic forces, his shrinking process accelerating beyond his control. He was shrinking beyond comprehension, his body seemingly dissolving into nothingness. He was lost, adrift in a sea of infinite possibility, the world he knew fading into oblivion. He had gone too far, risked too much, and now he was paying the price. He closed his eyes, accepting his fate, a single thought echoing in his mind. Cassie. The implosion of PIM Technologies sent shockwaves through San Francisco, both literally and figuratively. Debris rained down on the city as emergency responders rushed to the scene, their sirens a constant wail against the backdrop of the smoking crater that was once a beacon of technological innovation. News crews descended upon the scene, their cameras capturing the devastation and speculating wildly about the cause of the catastrophic event. Amidst the chaos and confusion, Scott Lang re-emerged into the world, his body aching, his mind reeling from his brush with the quantum realm. He had escaped the implosion, his shrinking abilities somehow protecting him from the worst of the blast, but the experience had left an indelible mark on him. He had stared into the abyss, touched the very fabric of reality, and returned forever changed. He found Hank and Hope, their faces etched with a mixture of relief and concern, their relief at his survival tempered by the knowledge that Cross's actions had unleashed something dangerous into the world. The Yellow Jacket suit was gone, lost in the implosion, but the technology still existed, the knowledge of its creation now out there for anyone with the resources and the ruthlessness to replicate. Scott knew that his life would never be the same. He had started this journey as a thief seeking redemption, a father desperate to regain the trust of his daughter. He had stumbled into a world of shrinking suits, talking ants and quantum realms, a world where the impossible was not only possible, but probable. He had faced his fears, embraced the absurd, and emerged a hero, albeit an unlikely one. In the aftermath of the PIM Technologies incident, Scott struggled to adjust to his new reality. He was a fugitive, wanted by the authorities for his role in the heist, yet he was also a hero, hailed by those who knew the truth as the man who had stopped a madman and saved countless lives. He was caught between two worlds, the life he had left behind, and the destiny that had been thrust upon him. Paxton, torn between his duty as a police officer and his growing respect for Scott, found himself in a similar predicament. He had witnessed Scott's heroism firsthand, had seen the lengths he would go to protect his daughter and those he cared about. He made a choice, one that went against his training and his better judgment, but felt right nonetheless. He would protect Scott's secret, using his position within the police force to ensure that the truth about Ant-Man remained hidden from the world. Meanwhile, Hank, his faith in humanity somewhat restored by Scott's actions, allowed himself a glimmer of hope. The quantum realm, once a source of grief and despair, now held the possibility of redemption. If Scott could survive a trip into its depths, then perhaps, just perhaps, his beloved Janet might still be alive, lost but not gone. He vowed to continue his research, to unlock the secrets of the quantum realm, driven by a love that even time and seemingly insurmountable odds could not extinguish. One evening, as Scott sat in his apartment, trying to explain the concept of shrinking to a bewildered Louise, a knock came at the door. Standing on his doorstep was a figure he recognized from the news, a man clad in red, white, and blue, a shield strapped to his arm. "Scott Lang," the man said, a wry smile playing on his lips. "I hear you know a thing or two about impossible missions." The Avengers were looking for recruits, and Ant-Man, the unlikely hero, found himself being offered a place among their ranks. The adventure, it seemed, was far from over.